the best volunteer experience for medical school. Hey, BeMo Nation, welcome to another episode of our One Question podcast. My name is Ronza. I'm a lead admissions expert, and I'm also joined here with Meng Yang, another lead admissions expert here at BeMo. We have nothing to sell you. It's just pure strategies and tips. So everyone has equal access to education, of course. Now, in case you've never watched or listened to one of these before, they are completely unscripted. No audio, fancy visual effects of that nature. It's just pure content. We have 10 minutes to tackle a topic. And this week's topic is, of course, the best volunteer experience for medical school. And let me just get this going. Okay, 10 minutes on the clock. And we are going. All right, Meng, in terms of finding the best volunteer experience for medical school, I know one thing here at BeMo that we always emphasize is commitment and progression, right? And for those of you that are listening, have no idea what that is, Meng, could you walk us through what do we mean by commitment and what's progression about? Why is that important?
That's a really good question, Ronza. The two really go hand in hand. So it's always good to talk about them together. When we say commitment, we really mean the length of time that you're dedicating to an activity. And we always say the longer, the better, because the longer you're dedicated to an activity, the more opportunities you have to actually gain the skills and to grow. And that growth is really what we mean by progression, right? For example, you could start off in a volunteer position, just kind of learning the ropes, doing, kind of a collection of tasks here and there, but then you might move on to join a committee. You might then end up as a leader in the organization. And that progression is really important. In terms of overall commitment, it also shows that you are doing the activity because you truly enjoy it and you want to make a contribution in that group or in that organization, rather than just adding a line on your CV or checking off a box. If that comes through in your application, it doesn't really look good on your application. So I guess what I'm saying is you really should be selecting activities that you want to commit to and that you want to progress in.
Wonderful. I definitely agree with that. Resume building is not the way to go when it comes to your application for medical school, right? It's highly competitive. We've mentioned that here before. Now, in terms of skills, right? So we're talking about commitment and progression. So say you're evaluating and you're looking at certain opportunities. You're like, okay, I think this definitely has a commitment. It's pretty long term. There's lots of hours. It demonstrates that there's room to grow here, and they want people to kind of progress. So that potentially is the opportunity here. But now, what about the skills? Like, is there specific skills that I need to be looking for? Things that perhaps are more up top priority for medical school, and things that are more appreciated by the admissions committee when they're reviewing my application? What would you say to that, Meg?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, Ronza. And I think when people think about the kinds of skills they're going to be evaluated on, they automatically gravitate towards clinical types of experiences. And, for most people, that's just what makes sense. The skills that I'm going to need as a future physician are going to be gained in those settings. However, if you look at the skill sets, for example, if you look at AAMC's core competencies, if you look at the lists of competencies that individual schools list, you'll notice that most of them are actually transferable skills, things like interpersonal skills, things like mentorship, leadership. These are skills that are not solely gained in a clinical setting. You can gain them in a variety of different volunteer experiences. So to understand what those skills are, obviously go and do research. It's important for you to read about the different attributes that each school is going to be looking for, or that the entire field is going to be looking for in terms of who they train. And having an understanding of that will help you to not only identify experiences where you could be gaining those skills, but also will help you to see the skills that you are gaining through your existing activities. I think a lot of people end up discounting a lot of the things that they've done, but you should definitely not do that. You should think about what you've already done and really be able to identify many of those skills and traits that you've been gaining throughout the entire journey.
100%. I know when it comes to skills, I have seen students with a variety of skills, and a lot of it, and why it's, I guess, effective and how it's drawn out of the application in the most, effective way, in the most personal way that I think would be the best first impression. Again, it stems back to the commitment and progression, right? So you could have the best role at the hospital, and it's, for a short period of time, and you don't really get exposed to the skills that, Meng had highlighted earlier. And you didn't get to really take away or learn or reflect or refine anything from that. The perspective or insight did not get enriched by that experience. So that wouldn't actually be something that's helpful, right? So, and going back to some of the skills that we just highlighted, whether it be advocacy or communication, and yes, would it be ideal to get that experience in a hospital? Absolutely. But you could get those communication experiences in a variety of different ways, whether that's working at your downtown shelter, whether that's partnering up with a nonprofit, whether that's, even simply tutoring someone or helping someone, or some sort of home care that you've been able to establish, whether that be someone in your neighborhood that's looking for extra help. Of that nature. It's all in how, ideally, all in how you apply those skills. And usually if it has that commitment and that progression, then it certainly is something that's going to make it a valuable and the best volunteer experience, if we can say. All right, so we have quite a bit of time here, Mang, so we can take this wherever we'd like, but I think to give the students more helpful tips and advice, and it's something you touched upon earlier, why is it important for them to be selective of their volunteer experience? How is that going to play a factor in their application?
Well, yeah, I mean, your volunteering experiences, they will show the committee like many of the skills that you're trying to demonstrate, but they'll also demonstrate to the committee your well-roundedness and where your interests lie. And you don't want to just be randomly getting involved in a bunch of activities. Because even before you get to the application stage, you might find yourself overwhelmed. You might find yourself not really enjoying what you're doing in those activities. And that can just kind of degrade the experience overall that you have in college, or whatever point of life you're in as you're preparing to enter into medical school. So overall, here at BeMo, we always emphasize intrinsic motivation. That's one of the things that we promote, because if you enjoy the activity that you're doing, then you're going to learn more, you're going to be able to contribute more, you're going to be a happier person. All of those things, believe it or not, will come out in your application when you start talking about the activities that you've been doing. It's very easy, and I think Ronza will agree with me. We've both read many applications. It's very easy to see when someone on paper really enjoyed what they did and learned a lot and gained a lot of skills, compared to someone who's just kind of describing it because they have to, because they feel like they did it, and so it has to go into their application, and so it's like a dry description of their responsibilities, and it's not a fun read. So your enjoyment of an activity can translate onto paper in your application. So you want to select the ones that really mean a lot to you. Mm-hmm.
I definitely agree again here, Mang. I actually vividly recall some of these experiences I've read from the students that we've been able and lucky and fortunate to kind of review their journey. And I remember the details. It's really all in the details. And that comes from the exposure and the commitment and how much they're really involved, whether that's playing checkers with an elderly man and recalling stories that you're kind of learning about from him, and being able to interact in a way that was compassionate. And that was kind of your first time having, such an insightful moment. Even something as tiny as that, might not be directly related to medicine, but it certainly is related to one of the skills that they value, and that is that interaction. So yes, don't be, I guess, don't be kind of clouded by sort of some of the nice titles for positions, or kind of only be categorical and trying to reference and corner yourself to only one exposure of volunteer experience. Be open to to different kinds of experiences. And that actually ends our topic for today. So thank you so much for watching or listening. If you like this as much as we enjoyed putting this for you, certainly go ahead and share this with a friend, or subscribe so you don't miss out a future episode, and ask any questions if you have in the comments section, and hopefully we'll see you next time.